And I would go into like Yahoo chat and instant messenger rooms. And do you remember those rooms?
Oh, yes.
And I would debate with the Roman Catholics in there, like, haha, I'm going to own you Catholics. And I know that like they weren't known apologists, but they would oftentimes put quotes from the church fathers that I was like, wow, he really said that? Because as a Calvinist, you think, oh, Augustine, he's one of us. Like he teaches Calvinism. And so that kind of got me wondering about Catholic church history. And I remember I bought a Roman Catholic Catechism. And then I realized I'm going to have to buy the church fathers. So I just started plowing through the Latin church fathers because I thought, well, I don't know anything about Eastern fathers, but I know about Jerome. I know about St. Augustine, St. Ambrose, Cyprian. I'm going to start with those guys. So I started plowing through it. And I'm noticing like, man, all of these Latin church fathers that I held in high regard, they're straight up teaching Catholic stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, well, those Eastern fathers are cool, but it's all about Augustine. It's about Anselm. It's about Aquinas, the A's, right? The 3 A's. And, you know, we don't really need to worry about those Eastern dudes. But, well, wait a minute. Aren't all the councils Eastern?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I should read these guys who are doing the theology of those
in
councils
the original language
for the most part. But it was also, by the way, a lot of biblical theology that got me back in Orthodoxy, because in Roman Catholicism, they will give credence to the Bible. And I don't mean this as like a low-tier Protestant critique that Roman Catholics don't read their Bible. In Rome, it's so focused on papal documents and in the traditional world and the devotions to this or that, Fatima or whatever, that I do actually think that the Bible is not given primary importance in Rome.
So how did you first end up coming into the Orthodox Church or coming across it? If we can just get the summary of that.
So I remember I was raised Baptist, wasn't super serious about it as a kid, but when I was in high school, I got more interested in going to Bible studies and visiting with various denominations of friends. Some went to Church of Christ, charismatic churches, and even I think I went to the Catholic Church one time in high school. But I would say right around 1998, 99, I started noticing challenges on the internet to Protestantism and Calvinism from Catholics. And I would go into like Yahoo chat and instant messenger rooms. And do you remember those rooms?
Oh, yes.
And I would debate with the Roman Catholics in there, like, haha, I'm going to own you Catholics. And I know that like they weren't known apologists, but they would oftentimes put quotes from the church fathers that I was like, wow, he really said that? Because as a Calvinist, you think, oh, Augustine, he's one of us. Like he teaches Calvinism. And here he is talking about baptismal regeneration. Here he is talking about the Eucharist. He's a bishop, relics, all this kind of stuff. So I was really challenged early on in about 1999, 2000 by a lot of Roman Catholics, and wasn't ready to leave Protestantism yet, but that prompted me to get into debates. And so I listened to Dr. Greg Bahnsen debating a Roman Catholic named Jerry Matitix, and that was a huge pivotal debate for me because I had all my faith in Bahnsen demolishing Matitix in this debate. And turns out Matitix did pretty good. He actually brought up some issues about tradition that I'd never heard. And so that kind of got me wondering about Catholic church history. And I remember I bought a Roman Catholic Catechism because I was curious what they actually say. And then I realized I'm going to have to buy the church fathers because I need that set. It was only $1,000 back in 2001.
It's a lot more now.
So it is. I think it's $2,000 or $3,000 now. But I bought the Philip Schaff set for my I used my Christmas and birthday money to buy it back in, I think, 2001. So I just started plowing through the Latin church fathers because I thought, well, I don't know anything about Eastern fathers, but I know about Jerome. I know about St. Augustine, St. Ambrose, Cyprian. I'm going to start with those guys. So I started plowing through it, and I was taking some correspondence classes at the time from Bahnsen's. He had his own sort of study center, Southern California Center for Christian Studies is what it was called. So I was studying like presuppositional apologetics, transcendental argument, all that kind of stuff. And I'm noticing like, man, all of these Latin church fathers that I held in high regard, they're straight up teaching Catholic stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a real crisis of faith at the time. And I ended up becoming Roman Catholic in 2003, entered into the Novus Ordo. Went to the Novus Ordo consistently for about a year. And then somebody left a Latin Mass magazine on a pew one time, and I started reading it. I was like, what's this Latin Mass? That's crazy. So then I realized, there's a whole traditional movement within the Roman Catholic world. And that introduced me to the FSSP and the SSPX. And so I found a Latin Mass, bought a missal, and started going to the Latin Mass pretty consistently for 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
And I would have to drive to Memphis or Nashville from where I lived. It was about 2 hours on Sunday to go to the Latin Mass. And after a while, it was just like I was super devoted to Thomism, super devoted to. I didn't want to be a monk, but I was like, I really wanted to take this seriously. And I did inquire one time about monastic life, and the dude was so gay that I was like, he was like, what has you interested in monastic life? And I think he was hitting on me, and I was like, no, I'm straight, dude. And he was, oh, this is probably not for you.
Oh, really? That's what he said?
No, it was the diocesan spiritual advisor for Memphis, super totally gay. And so that really turned me off. I was like, dude, this is not what I want. And the trad world is very chaotic. There's not a lot of monastic options in the traditional Catholic world. So I just kind of put all that aside. And about 2007, I was introduced to Orthodoxy online through Facebook debates. Mm-hmm. I'd heard of Perry Robinson. I'd read some of the blog, but there was a guy named Jonathan that was on, Jonathan Kopanek was a buddy of mine on Facebook. And I think he had converted from Calvinism to Orthodoxy, and I had gone from Calvinism to Rome. And so we were having all these debates and discussions, and these guys started bringing up good questions, good things I'd never considered. I'd not actually read Eastern Fathers, because I think when you go from Protestant to Catholic, as most people do nowadays when they do that, they just think, oh, well, those Eastern Fathers are cool, but it's all about Augustine. It's about Anselm. It's about Aquinas, the A's, right, the 3 A's. And, we don't really need to worry about those Eastern dudes. But, well, wait a minute, aren't all the councils Eastern?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I should read these guys who are doing the theology of those
in
councils
the original language
for the most part. Well, I don't know the languages.
Or I mean, they're doing it in Greek.
Yeah, in Greek.
What they're doing.
Not Latin.
Right. They're not working from translations of the Bible. They're working from the actual text.
Actually, exactly. And I remember I read a lot of Augustine. I was super devoted. When I became Roman Catholic, I took his name in chrismation. Or reception.
He's a wonderful saint.
But what I had done was just sort of defaulted, as many Protestants do, even the Reformation guys, like they all just defaulted to the Augustinian views on Trinity or anything, created grace. So I just, again, after reading all the Anti-Donatus works, read all the City of God, read all the anti-Pelagian works, a lot of the, Enchiridion, all that kind of stuff. And I read most of On the Trinity. It's massive. I read most of it as a Protestant or as a Catholic. And I just defaulted to thinking that, well, this is it. This is how you explain the Trinity. But it was only when I got into Orthodox critiques that it even ever occurred to me that he might have gotten some things wrong. So I grappled with that for a couple of years. That was a really difficult thing to let go of, because I think my personality, especially in my 20s, I have a tendency to really have hero figures, and you don't want to see any flaws in your hero figures. But over time, the more I read the Cappadocians, the more I read St. Maximus the Confessor, kind of gradually here and there, I started realizing this is a different model of the Trinity. It's a different model of grace, and that was huge for me. I was kind of left aimless for a little while, a few years. In 2007, I actually went through the Orthodox Catechumenate, and I didn't join. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not ready. I'm still super Thomistic, super Augustinian, not ready to make that leap yet. And I actually think that was the right choice, because if you still have all that baggage of Western theology, you're going to want to try to make Orthodoxy Latin.
Yes.
And it takes time to kind of cleanse a lot of those presuppositions.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story short, I didn't end up marrying the girl. We were both going to become Orthodox, and we went through the catechumenate, and we were going to get married, and we ended up not doing that. And I just kind of wasn't sure for several years. So I didn't go back to the Novus Ordo. I was just kind of like, well, I'm not going to be Protestant. I'm not ready for Orthodoxy. I'm not going to Rome or trad stuff anymore. So I just was kind of in limbo. And that was about, 5 or 6 years. And then around 13, 14, I started gradually reading more Orthodox stuff again. Started talking to some Orthodox friends again on Twitter or on Facebook and stuff. And I got really sick, actually. I had 2 bad cases of pneumonia. And I wasn't dying, but it was like sick enough that I felt like a taste of death.
Yeah.
And that was a huge kind of like spank, I guess you could say, chastisement to make me think maybe I need to actually get my life in order. You know what I mean? And so I quit drinking. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I think I could have been because I drank a lot, and I felt like it's ruining my gut. I'm super sick. I just need to make some changes.
And how old are you at this point, roughly?
This was 2012, 13. So this is 12 years ago. So I would have been in my mid 30s.
Okay.
So mid 30s, started going, visiting some Orthodox churches locally. Had an old friend actually that used to go to my Calvinist church who had become an Antiochian priest.
Oh.
And he ended up actually being at the local Antiochian church that was an hour from me. An old friend of mine that I went to high school with, who's an Antiochian priest. So props to Father Matthew Snowden. And so I went and met with him, and we talked, and we had some good inquiry discussions. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should revisit this catechumen situation. And so I redid all of that and stopped smoking too, because I think the pneumonia came from vaping, actually.
Okay.
So I quit vaping, I quit drinking. Not that Orthodoxy is about, puritanical morals, but for me, those things were, like obviously affecting my health, and drinking it was really messing with my gut. But
Well, you know what the hardest part about vaping is?
what?
Telling your parents you're gay.
The reason we vaped was to quit smoking.
Oh, really?
So it was an attempt to try to get away from cigarettes, and it worked for a little while. But I think the best medicine for smoking and vaping was pneumonia. Like if you get pneumonia, that's actually a great way to quit smoking. So I got it twice, and the woman was like, "If you keep smoking or vaping, you're probably gonna get pneumonia the third time." And I was like, "You know what? I'm done," because it was awful. I've been sick, but pneumonia was one of the worst. But anyway, so that was a good chastisement that came my way that got me kind of thinking about mortality. And those things can be good enticements to repentance. And so in 2015, 16, I just kept reading Orthodox theology like nonstop. 2017, I think I met with Father Snowden, and we talked about inquiring, catechumenate, and all that. So I did that through 2017 and came in, I think, in 2018. My wife had actually came in a little earlier. We weren't married at the time, but she was at a different church in South Carolina, so she came in the OCA a year before me. Anyway, so that's the long route story to where I kind of got back into. But it was also, by the way, a lot of biblical theology that got me back into Orthodoxy, because in Roman Catholicism, they will give credence to the Bible. And I don't mean this as like a low-tier Protestant critique that Roman Catholics don't read their Bible. In Rome, it's so focused on papal documents and in the traditional world and the devotions to this or that, Fatima or whatever, that I do actually think that the Bible is not given primary importance in Rome.
It's not. I mean, it's everything's about, like, are you doing the devotion to Our Lady of the Brown Scapular of the feast day of Fatima of Lourdes?
Yep. And what I liked about Orthodoxy was that going back to the liturgy and realizing, well, this is actually just scripture come to life here in the liturgy. And even though Rome it kind of is that, or at least gives verbal credence to that, it was just different. And I was just burnt out on all of the Roman, just the whole system. So I think really for me, there was a lot of like system breaking that had to occur. Does that make sense? Yeah,
it is. And it's for people who have been in Catholicism, I think they will understand exactly what you mean. It's also just, you go to talk to your parish priest and you realize these seminaries have more fruit than an orchard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, as a straight guy, I mean, how do you relate to that?
It's a challenge, yeah.
And then on top of, if you want to be married, how are you relating to this guy who has to be completely, celibate and live around women? It's very, how do you advise people on marriages when you're not married?
Yeah. Yeah, there's all those practical issues, and I think you're right to go back to, like, a lot of times for most of us, it's not ultimately a lot of these intellectual ideas. That plays a part, but, like, there's all these other things going on in your life, too, that are like I said, enticements to repenting and seeing things in a different way. So, yeah, so eventually I just kind of read my way back through the book of Daniel particularly was a huge influence on me. So I took Daniel's name when I became Orthodox.
Oh, wonderful.
The prophet Daniel, because so much of Daniel, I think, really just confirmed for me that the Messianic era began, in the first Advent, Daniel 9, etc. So Daniel was a huge impetus to return to the earlier investigation 10 years prior in Orthodoxy. So that was the long route to Orthodoxy.
Well, it's phenomenal to have you here. It's amazing.
It's been a wild journey.
It's not how you run the race, it's how you finish it, right?
Well,
how would you say that you've grown or changed as a person since entering the church?
good question.
I mean, how many years has it been now? 7?
If you
8?
count catechumenate, 8 or 9.
Okay.
But I think, Father Turbo Qualls said it best when he said, before you're Orthodox, you kind of think, all these things out there I'm going to fix, all these problems out there you need to change. And then when you become Orthodox, and after a few years, you start to realize all the vices that you haven't fixed, right? Yeah. So I think that was the biggest revelation over the last several years was, rather than worrying so much about everybody else's problems and the politics and the geopolitics and all that stuff and fixing the world, it really changes the focus about beating the passions. So I would say that hopefully, by God's grace, I've made some progress in terms of beating some passions. I don't think that I had as much patience nowadays as I did 6-7 years ago. So this year, for example, especially, I wanted to focus on, due to my spiritual father's guidance and whatnot, just trying to be dispassionate about what people are doing in debates, because I had a tendency to just immediately react to whatever a person in debate's doing to me. If they're getting vicious, I get vicious, right? And so last 2 big debates we've had, I focused on just being dispassionate and letting them kind of go crazy. I don't have to be as crazy back.
It was entertaining.
You can still be effective,
Absolutely.
without being super equally aggressive. So I just let the past 2 atheists go wild, and I just kind of sit there and chill out. Hopefully, and not just with that debate public setting, but also with my wife and other settings, like being patient.
Yeah.
Wives are great for learning patience. Like you have to, figure out how to navigate that whole world. As you said, women have a civilizing effect on dudes.
That's right.
So hopefully my wife has also contributed to some spiritual growth. I mean, obviously I have other passions that I've not, still get impatient, still get, have lustful thoughts, still have temptation to other vices. But I think from a practical perspective, like learning to be patient with people has been the first big lesson, and overcoming a lot of anger. I know like one thing that will happen, and many other people have discussed this in the Orthodox world, is like when you become an Orthodox, you especially during Lent, like you get tempted with certain types of things that are intent on ruining you.
Yeah.
And I know that like a couple Easters back, we had some really bad things happen, and even my priest got really kind of in my face rebuking me, and he needed to. It was a good rebuke, but when the rebukes are happening, it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
It's very unpleasant when you're getting rebuked. But looking back on that, I'm actually glad that happened. So point being there is just that like when you're in the Orthodox world for a while, you will begin to, it's almost like it's like a doctor assessing the main problems that you have. And your first inclination is to say, I don't have those problems. But then over time you realize, oh, actually I do. Oh. So that has been, I think, the biggest revelation, hopefully, for the first, 8 years of Orthodoxy is that kind of stuff. And then we had a good discussion with Father Turbo the other day. And I think a lot of people say he's spiritually gifted with being able to kind of immediately assess what your problem is. But he doesn't tell you your problem in an overt way. He kind of just talks to you and lets you realize what your problems are.
Yeah.
So he's very skilled and gifted at that. And we did a good podcast on that highlighted this issue. And so I'm just giving a shout out to Father Turbo. But I think that. But another thing I learned too was like you're going to be battling the passions your whole life.
Yeah.
And so you can't get like super down because you don't defeat all the passions within a couple of years. I think a lot of people have a mindset of, oh, I'm Orthodox now. Like, it's over. It's cool. I won. Well, no, now you have to fight the passions, and then you're not gonna beat those overnight. So that's another thing you have to grapple with. You know what I mean? We're always going to be battling these things. It's not like, oh yeah, for example, I'm not tempted to steal stuff. That's not a vice for me. But other things are a temptation. So are those temptations going to go away? Probably not, as long as I'm alive, right?
It's like St. Anthony the Great says, expect temptation till the last breath.
Exactly.
Yeah, when you enter the church, you're really entering the gym, so to say. You're entering the training center. You're being trained to be a fighter. And, those periods of fasting, those are your sparring sessions. Mm-hmm. Those periods of non-fasting, you're building up muscle. You're learning the moves. You go into Lent. That is your tournament. That's your live tournament. Your Wednesdays, your Fridays, your sparring sessions. And yeah, you're going to get beaten up during Lent, so to say. You're going to be, despondent, depressed. Yeah. We had a priest years ago who told me, years and years and years ago, Father Thomas Davis of blessed memory, and he said that you can tell that it's Lent simply from the confessions, because the rates of despondency and depression go up. Because demons don't like it when you're fasting; they hate it, right? It's. You can tell that there's a devil, that there's Satan, that there's demons simply from what happens when you start to draw close to God. They'll do anything to pull you back. Right? They're losing someone; they hate that, and you see it. I was at I actually went with someone to accompany them for an exorcism at St. Anthony's Monastery. Probably 2 decades ago. Mm-hmm. And the priest starts to read the prayers over this person. And if you think you know who this person is, please don't say their name. But I remember that the priest...
It's Deacon Ananias Sorum is who it is. I'm joking.
The priest, it was a female actually. The priest was sitting here, and I was sitting here, and the woman was sitting here, and the priest goes, okay, kneel down. And so she kneels, and I'm sitting here, okay, and the priest is here. And he lifted up his stole, right, which is what the priest stole, the epitrachelion. And he lifted it, moved it towards her head. And you know how like when a cat is sitting there and you reach your hand out and the cat kind of does that? That stole got close to her face, and she went like that, and I put my hand behind her back, pushed her forward. He set the stole on her head, and it slammed her into the ground. And the pleading started in different voices. No, no. She's squirming around, moving. And the priest has this book open. He's sitting like this. He has this book of prayers of exorcism. It's in Greek. And I'm like sitting there, I'm kind of looking over it, and I'm like, like she's trying to move, and I'm like, oh God, what's she going to do? And she's laying on the floor, like writhing. Mm-hmm. And I noticed as he's going through this book, and the words are very large, every time he said the name Jesus or Jesus Christ, her body would jolt like it was being electrocuted. And finally, what felt like 10 minutes, I have no clue how long it was. Probably about 10 minutes. Simply because the prayers for exorcism are fairly long. But she goes totally silent. And the priest looks up at me and he goes, breathe. She doesn't move. He pulls out some relics, moves them above her head, which he had done before during the exorcism with her eyes closed. He'd bring the relics of St. George above her. That was another point where her body would like jolt all of a sudden. It was being electrocuted. Okay. I'll never forget that pleading sound. They're losing someone. The demons are. They don't like that. They don't like it at all. They're punished horribly when they lose someone. Right? But it's, we have to remember that our actions are leading people to Jesus or pushing them away from Jesus. Even being too nice, being a dish rag is just as much pushing people away. Telling people they don't need to convert. Yeah. You're just fine where you are. It's like, no, you aren't. Yeah. You're outside the training gym.
Yeah, I think one of the elders said or something like sometimes tolerance and being nice is just a cloak for cowardice.
Oh, most of
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time. It's why libertarianism is the movement of losers. It's just people that they just think it's like noble to be like resigned to failure.
Yeah.
It's some sort of noble trait.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I don't care about anything, therefore I'm more enlightened. It's like, you don't care about anything, therefore you're a loser.
Right. Well, it's funny because also I think something that changed in me, and I'm not anti-intellectual or anti-book knowledge, but I do think that especially in my 20s and 30s, like that was kind of an idol. And I care a lot less about the book academic stuff as I did in my 20s and 30s. So that's something else that's changed. And to me, it's interesting because it's a lot more freeing. I mean, I'm still very interested in intellectual pursuits. I do intend to,
They're enjoyable.
Yeah, it's fun, but it's not the main thing as it was for me in my 20s and 30s. So that's another, I think, freeing aspect of Orthodoxy to where, in the Roman Catholic or even the Protestant world, it's all really just ideas. And it's all about the system. It's all about, who's got the more coherent, set of systemic, theological presentation.
The magisterium obsession.
And I don't care about that anymore.
More about transformation.
Exactly. Perfect.